Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have so much money that you could buy anything, except the one thing that truly matters? I discovered, at 32 years old, in the most humiliating moment of my life, that sometimes the greatest luxury is simply being seen for who you really are. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for 3 months I pretended to be just a simple administrative assistant at Golden Dragon Foods, one of the largest Asian restaurant chains in the United States. No one knew that I was the heir to the Mitchell Industries empire, that my family owned a fortune valued at $2.8 billion, or that I could buy the entire company with the money in my checking account. If you're enjoying this twist-and-turn transformation story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any chapter of this exciting journey. Leave a thumbs up if you've ever been in a situation where you had to prove your worth. Bell. The plan had started as a joke between friends. Tired of men interested only in my last name and bank account, I decided I wanted to experience what it would be like to be a normal person. I got documents with my middle name, Sarah Collins, and applied for regular job openings. The irony was that I ended up being hired by Golden Dragon Foods, a company run by Kevin Zhang, a 29-year-old heir to a Chinese business dynasty. In the first few weeks, I thought I had finally found someone who would understand me. After all, we were both heirs navigating family expectations and corporate pressures. How wrong I was. Kevin Zhang was everything I despised in rich men: arrogant, superficial, treating employees like disposable objects. He had that classic Oriental beauty, 1.83 m tall, jet black hair always perfectly styled, custom-made suits that cost more than the annual salary of his employees. But his personality was ugly. Collins. His voice sliced through the air in the reception area like a blade. Where are the reports I asked for yesterday? It was a typical Tuesday. I was wearing a simple black skirt from Target, a basic white blouse, my brown hair in a functional bun. My only luxuries were my shoes, Louboutin knockoffs, because a girl has her limits, and my Chanel perfume, which I sprayed moderately. "They've been on your desk since 8 a.m., Mr. Zhang," I calmly replied, adjusting my fake glasses. Yes, I wore non-prescription glasses to appear more normal. He rolled his eyes. "Next time, make sure I see them. Don't assume anything." Lisa, the receptionist next to me, shot me a sympathetic look. She had no idea I could fire him with one phone call. The days dragged on like this. Kevin assigned humiliating tasks, made condescending comments about my lack of ambition, and blatantly flirted with any woman he deemed at his social level. I watched it all, mentally noting every red flag, every display of questionable character. But there were moments when I caught him looking out his office window with a different expression. Moments when he spoke to his grandmother on the phone in Mandarin, and his voice softened. Moments when I almost believed there was a real person under that spoiled playboy facade. "Sarah, do you have plans for the weekend?" Jessica from accounting asked me during lunch. We were sitting in the cheap food court I frequented religiously, eating sandwiches that cost less than an appetizer at my favorite restaurant. "Probably staying home watching Netflix," I lied. "Actually, I had a charity event on Saturday. I was donating $500,000 to an orphanage." "Kevin is hosting a party on his yacht this Saturday," Jessica whispered conspiratorially. "I heard he's only inviting the special employees." I rolled my eyes. "Special employees?" "You know, the pretty ones, the ones he thinks have potential for entertainment." My stomach churned. "That's disgusting." "Yeah, but imagine, a real yacht. It must be amazing." If only she knew I owned 3 yachts, one of which was bigger than Kevin's apartment. The afternoon brought the news that would change everything: the company would be receiving Chinese investors for a potential merger. There would be a corporate event on Friday, a gala at the Four Seasons Hotel with the West Coast's business elite. "All employees are required," Kevin announced during the general meeting. "I want you to see how real business is conducted." My heart raced. The Four Seasons, it was where my family always hosted business partners. The chances of me being recognized were enormous. Mr. Zhang, I timidly raised my hand. I don't have appropriate clothes for such an event. He looked me up and down with evident disdain. Collins, it's a corporate event, not a debutante ball. Anything from your wardrobe will do. Muted laughter echoed through the room. I felt my face flush with humiliation, not because I actually cared about the clothes, but because he was deliberately belittling me in front of everyone. Actually, he continued, seemingly inspired by his own cruelty, maybe it's a good opportunity for you to see the difference between people who were born for success and people who work for people like me. The silence in the room was deafening. I could feel the pitying stares of my colleagues, but also Kevin's sadistic satisfaction. He was clearly enjoying himself. Any questions? He asked, smiling. I took a deep breath. None, Mr. Zhang. But inside, a decision was forming. A decision that would change our lives forever. That night, sitting in my modest, one-bedroom apartment, which I had rented specifically to keep up the charade, I called my personal assistant. Marina. It's me. I need you to get my navy blue Valentino dress ready for Friday. Yes, that one. And call the Four Seasons Hotel. I want the presidential suite booked under my real name. It's time for some people to find out who I really am. On the other end of the line, Marina laughed. Finally tired of the game, boss? I looked out the window of my temporary apartment, thinking about Kevin's cruel smile that afternoon. Let's just say someone's about to learn a very expensive lesson about how to treat people. Want to know how Sarah is going to turn the tables on Kevin? The next chapter promises twists and turns you won't want to miss. Have you ever felt that your entire life was about to change in just one night? That's exactly how I felt on the morning of Friday, as I meticulously planned every detail of my reveal. Friday dawned gray in Los Angeles, but I woke up with an energy I hadn't felt in months. Today would be the day Kevin Zhang discovered that his incompetent assistant could actually buy his company 3 times over. Good morning, Sarah. Lisa greeted me when I arrived at the office, wearing my usual disguise outfit, cheap dress pants, a basic white shirt, and my fake glasses. Excited for the event tonight? More than you can imagine, I replied, barely holding back a smile. Kevin arrived an hour later, impeccable as always. A dark gray Armani suit, a blue silk tie, perfectly styled hair. He greeted a few employees with dismissive nods but stopped at my desk. Collins, I hope you have something decent to wear tonight. I don't want my Chinese partners thinking I hire just anyone. I swallowed the response I really wanted to give. Of course, Mr. Zhang. And try not to get too embarrassed when you see how truly successful people behave. It could be educational for you. This time, several colleagues heard the comment. I could feel their expressions of discomfort for me. If only they knew. Understood, I murmured, pretending to be submissive. At 3 in the afternoon, I left the office claiming a family emergency. Actually, I had a real emergency, a beauty emergency. I drove my used Honda Civic, which I had specifically bought for the charade, to my real home, an 8,000 square foot mansion in Beverly Hills, hidden behind tall gates and perfectly manicured gardens. Marina. I called as soon as I entered. Is everything ready? My personal assistant, a stylish 45-year-old Filipina woman who had worked with me for 8 years, smiled widely. Miss Sarah, I've been waiting for this day for 3 months. The dress is in your room, the beauty team will arrive at 5, and... She paused dramatically. And Cartier Jewelry sent 3 options for necklaces. I thought you'd like to choose personally. I climbed the Italian marble stairs to my bedroom, where my navy blue Valentino dress was carefully hung. It was a masterpiece, a mermaid cut that accentuated every curve of my body, an elegant yet modest neckline, delicate embroidery with Swarovski crystals that subtly sparkled. It had cost $28,000, but it was worth every penny. At 5 o'clock sharp, my beauty team arrived, hairdresser, makeup artist, and manicurist. While they worked, I called my lawyer. Richard. Sarah. I need you to be at the Four Seasons tonight with some documents. Yes, it's time to end the game. What do you mean, it was time? You never really approved of this idea, did you? Richard Hoffman had been my family's lawyer for 20 years. He never really understood my need to live like a normal person. Sarah, are you sure you want to do this publicly? It could be embarrassing for all parties involved. Richard, you haven't seen how this man treats me every day. He deserves to learn a lesson in humility. At 7 in the evening, I was unrecognizable. My brown hair, usually tied in a functional bun, now cascaded in Hollywood waves over my shoulders. The makeup, done by one of LA's top professionals, enhanced my green eyes and perfectly defined my lips. The Valentino dress made me look like a goddess. And the jewelry. I chose the Cartier diamond necklace, $2.3 million of perfect stones that sparkled like stars against my skin. Miss Sarah, Marina said, her eyes shining, you are absolutely stunning. Kevin Zhang won't know what hit him. I nervously laughed. I hope you're right. The Four Seasons was magnificent when I arrived in my silver Lamborghini Huracan, kept in the secret garage of my mansion for 3 months. I handed the keys to the valet, who nearly dropped them upon seeing the car. The gala hall was transformed into a paradise of elegance, crystal chandeliers, lush floral arrangements, tables decorated with the finest money could buy. The guests were exactly what I had expected, the business elite of Los Angeles, many familiar faces from my real social circle. I took a deep breath and walked in. The first to recognize me was James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Tech and an old family friend. Sarah Mitchell, he exclaimed, almost dropping his champagne glass. What a wonderful surprise. I didn't know you'd be here. James, I smiled warmly, feeling all eyes on our conversation. It's great to see you. My God, you look radiant. How's your family? Your father mentioned you're expanding into the Asian market. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Kevin chatting with a group of Chinese executives near the bar. He hadn't seen me yet, he was too busy gesturing dramatically, probably telling some story about his own importance. James, would you excuse me for a moment? I need to greet a few people. I walked toward the bar, each step calculated. My heart was pounding like a drum, but my expression was one of pure confidence. That's when it happened. Kevin turned around, wine glass in hand, smiling at his Chinese guests, and saw me. The glass slipped from his hand. The crystal shattered on the marble floor with a sound that cut through all nearby conversations. His eyes widened, his mouth slightly opened, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw something like vulnerability in his expression. Sarah, he whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. Hello, Kevin, I replied with a sweet smile, my voice firm and clear. What a wonderful event you've organized. The group of Chinese executives looked between us, clearly confused. One of them, a distinguished man in his 60s, frowned. Kevin, are you going to introduce us to your friend? Kevin still looked in shock. I could almost see the gears turning in his head, trying to process how his incompetent assistant had transformed into the most elegant woman at the event. She works. I'm Sarah Mitchell, I gracefully interrupted, extending my hand to the Chinese executive. CEO of Mitchell Industries. It's a pleasure to meet you. The man took my hand with respectful reverence. Miss Mitchell. Of course. Your reputation precedes you. I'm Li Wei, president of Li Corporation in Shanghai. We are very familiar with your family. Likewise, Mr. Li. In fact, I believe our companies have done business in the past. Kevin finally found his voice. Sarah, how did you? I smiled at him with the same condescending sweetness he had used with me daily. Oh, Kevin, what a surprise to find you here. I didn't know you'd be the host. What an interesting coincidence. His eyes narrowed. I could see the exact moment the realization hit. His inferior assistant wasn't just a guest at the event. She was someone important enough for internationally renowned executives to know by name. Do you two know each other? Mr. Lee asked, looking between us with growing interest. Oh, yes, I replied before Kevin could speak. Kevin and I have a very interesting working relationship. In fact, I have some fascinating stories about our recent encounters. Kevin's face paled slightly. What kind of stories? Mr. Lee asked, genuinely curious. I took a sip of the champagne a waiter had offered me, savoring the moment. Well, Kevin has very defined opinions on what constitutes true success. He firmly believes that some people are born for success while others, as he put it yesterday, work for people like him. The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Lee looked at Kevin with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, but it was definitely not one of approval. Is that so? He said slowly. What an interesting perspective. Kevin was visibly sweating now. Sarah, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Oh, there's no misunderstanding, Kevin. Your words were very clear. At that moment, Richard appeared by my side with a folder of documents. Miss Mitchell, here are the papers you requested. Thank you, Richard. I took the folder and looked directly at Kevin. By the way, Kevin, since we're here, maybe this is a good time for us to discuss some changes I intend to implement at Golden Dragon Foods. His face turned completely white. Changes, he stammered. I smiled, slowly opening the folder. Oh yes. Lots of changes. What does Sarah have in that folder that has Kevin so terrified? The full reveal is coming in the next chapter. Do you think Kevin deserves what's coming? Let me know in the comments below. Have you ever seen a house of cards collapse? That's exactly how Kevin Zhang's world started to crumble the moment I opened that folder. Sometimes, the truth is the most powerful weapon we have. The gala hall at the Four Seasons had become our personal stage. More people were approaching, drawn to the palpable tension radiating from our small circle. I could feel Kevin slightly trembling beside me, though he tried to maintain his composure. So, Kevin, I said, pulling the first document from the folder, do you remember telling me yesterday that I should see how real business is conducted? His eyes fixed on the paper in my hands. It was a copy of the lease agreement for the building where Golden Dragon Foods operated. Sarah, please, he whispered, but his voice was muffled as I began reading aloud. Commercial lease agreement between Mitchell Properties Incorporated and Golden Dragon Foods Corporation. I paused dramatically, watching his face turn even paler. Let's see, Golden Dragon Foods. Property owner, another pause, Mitchell Properties Incorporated. Mr. Lee frowned. Miss Mitchell, I don't understand. Oh, Mr. Lee, it's very simple. Golden Dragon Foods has been paying rent to my family for 2 years. $15,000 a month, to be exact. I looked directly at Kevin. Kevin, did you know that every time you humiliate me in the office, you're insulting your landlady? The silence around us was complete. I could see more executives approaching, including some I recognized from my family's social circle. Kevin found his voice, though it came out hoarse. You own the building? Oh, dear Kevin, I smiled sweetly, this is just the beginning. I picked up the second document. This one is more interesting. It's a full financial report of Golden Dragon Foods for the last 6 months. His eyes widened. How did you get this? Well, when your company is in negotiations for a merger with Chinese investors, it's natural for all interested parties to conduct due diligence. And when you're one of the largest private investors on the West Coast, I left the sentence hanging, watching the full understanding finally hit his eyes. You're an investor? Mr. Lee asked, clearly intrigued. Mitchell Industries has an investment fund focused on emerging companies and market consolidation. We were, let's say, considering making an offer for Golden Dragon Foods. Kevin took a step back as if he had been physically struck. We were. Mr. Lee caught the past tense. Well, after conducting a very close internal investigation into the company culture and management practices, we decided that it wouldn't be an investment aligned with our values. I pulled out the third document, the most devastating of them all. This, Kevin, is a detailed report on inadequate labor practices, including systematic harassment, employee discrimination, and the creation of a hostile work environment. All documented by a very intimate source. His hands were visibly shaking now. Sarah, you can't. Can't what? Protect employees from abuse? Ensure that companies follow basic ethical standards. My voice was still sweet, but there was steel underneath. Or did you mean that I can't do this because I'm just an incompetent assistant who works for people like you? The crowd around us had grown considerably. I recognized several faces, CEOs, business magazine editors, social columnists. Kevin's humiliation was becoming very public. Mr. Lee looked at Kevin with a mixture of disappointment and restrained anger. Kevin, these are very serious accusations. Mr. Lee, I can explain. Actually, I interrupted, let me read a small excerpt from the report. Kevin closed his eyes, looking defeated. Mr. Zhang exhibits a consistent pattern of disrespect toward lower-level employees, including derogatory comments about socioeconomic status, physical appearance, and professional ability. On October 15, during a general meeting, Mr. Zhang publicly stated that some employees should see the difference between people who were born for success and people who work for people like him. The murmur in the crowd was audible now. Several people were shaking their heads in disapproval. This behavior, I continued, is inconsistent with the values of integrity and respect we expect from our business partners. Mr. Lee addressed Kevin in a cold voice. Kevin, is this true? For a moment, I thought Kevin would try to deny or make an elaborate defense. But something changed in his expression. The arrogance dissipated, replaced by something that looked like genuine regret. It's true, he said quietly, looking at the floor. I said those things. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. I had expected more denial, more arrogance. Kevin, Mr. Lee shook his head sadly. You disappoint me deeply. Your parents entrusted you with the family reputation in the United States. I know, Kevin replied, still looking down. When he finally looked up at me, I saw something I hadn't expected, genuine shame. Sarah. Miss Mitchell. You what, Kevin? I was a complete idiot. The sincerity in his voice disarmed me for a moment. In the past 3 weeks planning this revenge, I had painted Kevin as a one-dimensional villain. But the vulnerability in his eyes now suggested there might be more to him than I had realized. Yes, you were, I agreed, but my voice had lost some of its venom. Miss Mitchell, Mr. Lee addressed me, I fully understand why you withdrew interest in the company. It's a shame because the commercial potential was promising, but character is more important than profit. Kevin seemed to shrink even further. However, I continued, surprising myself, I believe everyone deserves a chance at redemption. Especially when they show genuine remorse. Kevin looked at me with cautious hope. That's why, I said, picking up the last document from the folder, I have a proposal. What kind of proposal? Mr. Lee asked. Mitchell Industries is willing to proceed with the acquisition of Golden Dragon Foods, but with very specific conditions. Kevin took a deep breath. What conditions? First, complete restructuring of the human resources management. Second, implementation of a comprehensive workplace awareness and respect program. Third, I paused, looking directly into his eyes, Kevin Zhang will spend 6 months working in basic positions at the company, kitchen, customer service, cleaning, to truly understand what it's like to work for people like him. The shock on his face was evident. You want me to work in the kitchen? I want you to learn humility, Kevin. I want you to understand that every person in that company has dignity and value, regardless of their position or bank account. Mr. Lee smiled for the first time that night. Miss Mitchell, that's a very wise condition. Kevin, this would be educational for you. Kevin looked between us, processing. I could see his pride struggling against the practical need to save his family business. And if I accept these conditions? Then Mitchell Industries will invest $50 million in the expansion of Golden Dragon Foods. You will retain your position as CEO after the training period, but with close supervision. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. When he opened them again, there was determination in his gaze. I accept. Kevin. Mr. Lee seemed genuinely surprised. Are you sure? I am. He looked directly at me. Miss Mitchell. Sarah, you're right. I need to learn to be a better person. A person who deserves to lead others. For a moment, our eyes met and I felt something unexpected, a spark of connection, of mutual understanding. Very well, I said, extending my hand. We have a deal. When he took my hand, I felt an electric current run through my arm. Through his eyes, I realized he had felt it too. One thing, Kevin, I added, still holding his hand. Yes? On Monday, you'll start as a kitchen assistant. And I will be your direct supervisor. He gulped. Understood. I hope so. Because now you'll work for people like me. But when I smiled, it was the first time my smile to him was genuinely warm. Does Kevin accept being humbled to save his family business? And is Sarah starting to see a different side of him? The next chapter promises to show Kevin in a completely new situation. Fire, leave a comment, do you think he can truly change? Have you ever seen a prince turn into a frog? I saw it on Monday morning, when Kevin Zhang showed up in the kitchen of Golden Dragon Foods at 6 a.m., wearing a chef's uniform and an expression of determination mixed with absolute terror. It was 5:45 a.m. when I arrived at the restaurant. I had returned to my role as Sarah Collins, but now with one crucial difference, everyone knew who I really was. The news of my reveal at the Four Seasons had spread like wildfire throughout the company. Miss Mitchell. Carlos, the head chef, greeted me with a huge smile. I can't believe you've been here all these months and didn't say anything. I wanted to get a real perspective of the company, I explained, adjusting my apron. Yes, I was still wearing the work uniform, after all, I would be Kevin's direct supervisor. And what did you think? I looked out the kitchen window, where I could see Kevin standing in the parking lot, clearly hesitating before coming in. I think there's a lot of potential, but also a lot of work to be done. Kevin finally entered, walking straight into the kitchen like a man walking to his own funeral. The white uniform was immaculate, obviously new, and his normally perfect hair was hidden under a chef's hat. Good morning, he said, his voice slightly trembling. Good morning, Kevin, I replied professionally. Ready for your first day? He nodded, but I could see his hands trembling slightly. Carlos, this is Kevin. He'll be our new kitchen assistant for the next 6 months. Carlos looked Kevin up and down with obvious skepticism. Like most of the staff, he knew exactly who Kevin was. The former boss? Carlos asked, not bothering to hide the amusement in his voice. The future improved boss, I corrected. Kevin is here to learn about the company from the ground up. Got it. Carlos smiled mischievously. Welcome to the real world, boss. The first 2 hours were disastrous. Kevin burned the onions. Twice. Cut his fingers trying to chop vegetables. Spilled an entire pot of sauce on the floor. Each mistake was accompanied by frustrated sighs and Mandarin comments that I suspected weren't very polite. "Kevin," I called after he somehow managed to make the rice stick to the bottom of the pot, "can you come here?" He approached, clearly embarrassed, bits of food stuck to his uniform. "How are you feeling?" Like a complete incompetent, he admitted, taking off his hat and running his hand through his sweaty hair. "Sarah, I never worked with my hands in my life." The raw honesty in his voice touched me unexpectedly. "I imagined that. My parents always had staff for everything. I never even had to make my own coffee." He looked at his hands, now calloused and cut. "I'm starting to understand why you did this." "Did what?" "Pretended to be a normal person. To see what it's really like to live without privileges." Our eyes met, and for a moment the tension between us lessened. "Kevin, can I give you some advice? Please. Stop trying to be perfect. No one here expects perfection, they expect genuine effort and respect." He nodded slowly. "How do I show respect?" "Learn everyone's name here. Thank them when they help you. And stop sighing in frustration every time you mess up, it makes everyone nervous." To my surprise, he laughed. "I was sighing. Constantly. Like the world was conspiring against you." "Maybe it is," he said with a self-deprecating smile I'd never seen before. The week progressed interestingly. Kevin was clearly struggling, but he was also genuinely trying. He showed up 15 minutes early every day, stayed later to clean, and slowly, very slowly, was improving. On Thursday, I witnessed a moment that completely changed my perspective on him. Maria, one of the cleaning staff, a 60-year-old Mexican woman who had worked at the company for 10 years, slipped on the wet floor and fell, hurting her knee. Before I could react, Kevin was by her side. "¿Está usted bien, señora?" he asked in Spanish, gently helping her to stand. I was shocked. He spoke Spanish. "Sí, gracias, joven," Maria responded, clearly surprised by his kindness. Kevin helped her to a chair and went to get ice for her knee, speaking fluently in Spanish about how she was feeling and whether she needed to go to the doctor. "Kevin," I called later, "since when do you speak Spanish?" He seemed embarrassed. "I studied it in college. And we have a lot of branches in Mexico. I thought it would be useful." "Why have you never spoken to Maria before?" His expression grew thoughtful. "Honestly? Because I was so focused on keeping my distance from all the employees that I never stopped to really get to know them." That night, we stayed later to finish cleaning the kitchen. It was just the two of us, and for the first time in months, the silence between us wasn't hostile. "Sarah," he said while drying dishes, "can I ask you something personal?" "You can try." "Why did you really do this?" "The disguise, I mean. It wasn't just to test the company, was it?" I stopped wiping down the counter and looked at him. There was something in his eyes, a sincerity I wasn't used to seeing. "Do you want the honest answer? Please." I was tired of never knowing if people liked me or my money. Tired of men who saw me as a trophy or a business opportunity. He nodded slowly. "I get that. You get it. Sarah, do you know how many women have approached me because they found out who my family is? How many coincidences have happened where pretty girls ended up in the same places as me?" For the first time, I considered how wealth must affect him too. "It must be lonely," I said softly. "It is." He stopped drying the dishes and looked directly at me. "But you know what's ironic?" "What?" "During these 3 months, when I thought you were just Sarah Collins, the assistant, I noticed you." My heart skipped a beat. Noticed how? The way you kept your calm when I was being an idiot. How you always treated everyone with kindness, even when I was being horrible. There was something about you that intrigued me, but I was too determined to keep up my arrogant playboy image to admit it. Kevin. Let me finish, he said, moving a little closer. When I saw you at the Four Seasons that night, my first thought wasn't about the embarrassment or how you had deceived me. It was, oh my God, she's even more beautiful than I thought. The air between us was now charged with a completely different tension. And now? I asked, my voice coming out raspier than I intended. Now I'm learning that the person you really are, smart, powerful, but still kind, is exactly who I was falling for without realizing it. My heart stopped. Falling for? He moved closer, taking off his rubber gloves and gently touching my face. Sarah, I know I don't have the right to feel this after how I treated you. I know you probably hate me. I don't hate you, I whispered. Don't? No. I hate who you pretended to be. But this person who's here now, learning, trying, being real, I looked into his eyes, seeing genuine vulnerability, this person is fascinating. He smiled, the first truly sincere smile I had ever seen from him. Can I make a confession? He asked. Of course. These have been the best days I've had in years. Even being humiliated, even having to learn everything from scratch. Because for the first time in my life, I'm being myself. And who is yourself? Someone who is completely in love with an incredible woman who deserves so much more than a spoiled playboy can offer, but who is willing to spend the rest of his life trying to become the man she deserves. The kiss was inevitable. Soft, tentative at first, then deeper when I realized I was reciprocating with the same intensity. When we pulled apart, we were both breathing heavily. Sarah, he whispered against my lips, I promise I will become the man you saw in me from the beginning. Kevin, I replied, I think you're already becoming him. The romance is starting. Two hearts, but is Kevin's transformation real or is he just trying to win Sarah over? The next chapter promises to reveal whether he can keep up the change when the pressure increases. Fire, what do you think? Does he deserve a second chance? Let me know in the comments below. Did you know that a person's true character only shows when they are under pressure? I discovered this in the most dramatic way possible when Kevin Zhang's parents showed up unannounced at Golden Dragon Foods, determined to save their son from the humiliation they believed I was imposing on him. It had been 6 weeks since that kiss in the kitchen. 6 weeks of Kevin arriving before everyone else to prepare ingredients, learning traditional recipes from Carlos, speaking Spanish with Maria, and genuinely transforming into a completely different person. And 6 weeks of the two of us dancing around feelings that were becoming impossible to ignore. Sarah, are you going to the Chinese food festival with me this weekend? Kevin asked as he chopped vegetables with a skill that would have been unthinkable 2 months ago. His hands, once soft and flawless, now had calluses from honest work. As a date? I asked, pretending to focus entirely on the marinade I was preparing. As two friends who enjoy each other's company and just happen to have undeniable chemistry, he replied with that smile that had become my undoing. I laughed despite myself. Very specific. I'm being careful. I don't want to pressure you after everything that's happened. It was this gentleness, this genuine consideration, that was making my heart completely surrender to him. Kevin, I would love to go. The kitchen door suddenly swung open violently, interrupting our conversation. 2 elegantly dressed Chinese men entered, one about 60 years old, clearly Kevin's father by the similar facial features, and another younger man, probably in his 30s. Kevin turned pale instantly. Baba? Dad, he whispered in Mandarin. The older man started speaking rapidly in Mandarin, his voice loud and clearly furious. Although I didn't understand the words, the tone was unmistakable, he was publicly humiliating Kevin. Baba, please, Kevin responded in English, nervously looking at me. Not here. Don't tell me not here, his father switched to English with a heavy accent. You've brought shame to our family. My son, working as a common servant. The younger man approached me with a condescending expression. You must be the American who's making my brother look like a fool. And you must be someone who wasn't properly introduced, I replied coldly, crossing my arms. Kevin positioned himself slightly between us. Sarah, this is my father, Zhang Wei, and my younger brother, David. Baba, David, this is Sarah Mitchell. The one Miss Mitchell, the father said with disdain. The woman who publicly humiliated my son. On the contrary, Mr. Zhang, I responded calmly, I'm the one who offered your son an opportunity for personal growth and redemption. David laughed dryly. Redemption? Making him work as a common cook. That's not redemption, it's revenge. David, Kevin interrupted, his voice firmer than I expected, you don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. David turned to me. Miss Mitchell, I admire your creativity, but this joke has gone on long enough. Kevin has real family responsibilities. Kevin's father nodded vigorously. We came to take Kevin back. He'll return to China with us today. I felt my stomach sink. I looked at Kevin, searching for signs that he would resist, that he would fight for the transformation we had built together. Kevin, I said softly. For a terrible moment, I saw the conflict in his eyes. The family pressure, the cultural expectations, the weight of tradition, all of it against the last 2 months of genuine growth. Baba, he said finally, his voice clear and determined, I'm not going anywhere. The silence in the kitchen was deafening. What do you mean? His father asked, clearly shocked. I said I'm not going. This job, this experience, has changed my life. And I'm not going to give it up or, he looked directly at me, the person who made this possible. David shook his head in disbelief. Kevin, have you lost your mind? She's American. You don't even share the same culture. You're right, Kevin replied, surprising everyone. Our cultures are different. But Sarah taught me something our family never taught me, that respect and humility are universal. That treating people with dignity doesn't depend on nationality or social status. Kevin's father turned red with anger. You choose a stranger over your own family? I'm not choosing against my family, Kevin said, stepping toward his father. I'm choosing to be a better version of myself. And if you really love me, you'll support this. That's when it happened, the moment that made me realize Kevin had truly changed. David, in a moment of frustration, turned to me and said something in Mandarin that made Kevin go pale with anger. Although I didn't understand the words, the tone was clearly disrespectful, and from the context, it was probably offensive. Kevin exploded in Mandarin, his voice loud and furious. The argument between the brothers escalated quickly, with words flying like weapons. Enough! I shouted, making everyone stop. Kevin, what did your brother say? Kevin hesitated, clearly not wanting to repeat it. Kevin. What did he say? He said that you're just a spoiled American playing at being a businesswoman, and that when you're done humiliating me, you'll toss me aside like a broken toy. The anger I felt was instant and fierce. Not because of the insult, I'd heard worse, but because of how David had deliberately tried to hurt Kevin by attacking our relationship. Mr. David Zhang, I said, my voice icy, you have exactly 30 seconds to leave my property before I call security. Your property? David laughed. This is our family's company. Actually, I grabbed my phone, let me clarify that for you. I dialed Richard, my lawyer. Richard? Sarah. I need you here immediately at Golden Dragon Foods with the acquisition papers. Yes, right now. I hung up and looked at the Zhang family. Gentlemen, in 20 minutes, my lawyer will be here with documents proving that Mitchell Industries now owns 51% of Golden Dragon Foods. This is my property. The shock on their faces was evident. This means, I continued, that I decide who stays and who goes. And you two just ran out of your welcome. Kevin looked at me with a mix of admiration and concern. Sarah, you don't have to. Kevin, I gently interrupted, you defended our relationship and your transformation against intense family pressure. Now it's my turn to defend you. I turned to his father. Mr. Zhang, your son has spent the last 2 months becoming a man of genuine character. He has learned humility, respect, and honest work. If that's not something to be proud of, then the problem isn't with Kevin. The older man stood in silence for a long moment, studying Kevin with new eyes. Kevin, he finally said, you really choose this? This life? Kevin took my hand, intertwining our fingers. Baba, I choose to grow. I choose to be a better person. And yes, he looked at me with so much love that my heart raced, I choose Sarah. After a tense moment, Kevin's father nodded slowly. Then prove it's worth it. Prove that this experience has truly changed you. David, however, wasn't ready to accept defeat. Kevin, when this all ends badly, don't come running back home. David, Kevin said calmly, I hope one day you find someone who challenges you to be your best version, as Sarah did with me. And when that happens, I hope you're brave enough to accept the challenge. After the family left the restaurant, Kevin and I were alone in the kitchen, still processing what had just happened. Are you sure? I asked softly. You just chose me over your family. No, he shook his head, pulling me into his arms. I chose to be authentic instead of living a lie. I chose love over obligation. And I chose a future we will build together instead of a past that limited me. Kevin. Sarah, I love you, he said, his words so simple and direct that they cut straight to my heart. I love your strength, your compassion, the way you challenged me to be better. I love how you treat everyone with dignity, no matter who they are. I love you too, I whispered, hardly believing I was saying those words. I love the man you've become, and I love watching you continue to grow. Our kiss was different this time, not hesitant or tentative, but full of promises and a future. 2 years later. I'm writing this from the terrace of our house in Malibu, watching Kevin teach Mandarin to the children in the scholarship program we set up together. Golden Dragon Foods now has 50 restaurants in 8 states, all operating with the highest standards of employee treatment. Kevin is no longer the arrogant playboy I first met. He works 3 days a week directly in the restaurants, knows each employee by name, and implemented a program where all managers must spend time working in every position before being promoted. His family. Well, his father now visits us regularly and proudly admits that Kevin has become the son he always hoped he would be. David is still learning. As for us, we got married a year ago, in a ceremony that honored both Chinese and American traditions. Kevin insisted that Maria, the cleaning lady, be one of the first people to receive an invitation. Sarah, Kevin calls me from the garden, come here. Wang Xiao just nailed your great-grandfather's recipe. I smile, closing the laptop. 2 years ago, I would have laughed if someone told me I'd find true love by publicly humiliating an arrogant Chinese magnate. But sometimes, the best love stories begin with someone challenging you to be who you really are. And sometimes, when you remove all the masks and pretensions, you discover that two people from completely different worlds can build something absolutely perfect together. Fire, what an incredible journey, right? From hate to love, from arrogance to humility. Two Hearts, what was your favorite part of this transformation? Leave a comment below if you believe in second chances, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this. Bell sparkles. Thank you for following this story of redemption and true love. Red Heart.